Aladdin and the Magic Lamp. In a country far, far away there lived a poor widow and her son, Aladdin. One evening a stranger knocked on the front door. "Good evening," he said. "My name is Mustafa, and I am looking for my brother's son, Aladdin. I have been away for a long time, but now I am back, and as his uncle I would like to take Aladdin to work for me, so that he can help you by earning honest money." Aladdin wasn't too keen on the idea, because there was something about Mustafa that he didn't like. But his mother couldn't have been happier at the news, and she agreed to let Aladdin go with his uncle. The next day Aladdin packed a small bag of food and left with his uncle. The two walked for a day into the desert until they reached a cave. The entrance was too small for Mustafa to get in, so he told Aladdin to go inside for him. Aladdin, who suspected that Mustafa wasn't very truthful, didn't want to risk his life for a stranger at first, but his uncle told him that there were gems and gold inside the cave. "You can take as much as you want. I only want you to find an old lamp for me and I will pull you out of the cave," Mustafa said. When Aladdin climbed into the cave, he couldn't believe his eyes. The cave was full of treasure, just as his uncle had said, so he started filling his pockets with as many diamonds and rubies as possible. He also found a gold ring which he immediately put on his finger. Finally, he found the lamp Mustafa had asked for. He asked his uncle to give him a hand getting out of the cave, but Mustafa told him that he wanted to see the lamp first. Aladdin, who was suspicious of his uncle, thought that Mustafa would take the lamp and leave him, so the boy refused to give him the lamp. Mustafa got angry. "Listen, boy, I am not your real uncle, and I don't care about you. I will leave you here if I want. Since you don't want to give me the lamp, I will block the cave with this huge rock," he shouted, and left Aladdin inside. The boy sat in the dark and cried with the lamp in his hands, which he blamed for his misery. "Stupid old lamp. It's not even made of gold, and it doesn't work," he cried. He rubbed the lamp a few times to wipe off the dust, when a genie suddenly came out of it. "Master, I will grant you 3 wishes. Be careful with your choices," he said and waited. Aladdin was shocked, but he quickly answered, "Take me home." And just the next moment he was sitting at home, right before his mother, who almost fainted at the appearance of her son out of the blue. Aladdin told her all about Mustafa, the cave and the treasure. While talking about the treasure, Aladdin rubbed his ring, and a second genie appeared. This time Aladdin's mother fainted. "Master, I can grant you 2 wishes. Choose carefully," advised the genie and waited. "That's easy. Give us enough gold and gemstones, so that we can be rich until the end of our lives and even longer," said Aladdin. Their old house disappeared in a moment, and Aladdin and his mother found themselves sitting in one of the many rooms of their palace, dressed in silk and cashmere. And they lived happily ever after until one day, as he was walking around the city with his friends, Aladdin saw an exceptionally beautiful girl. He immediately fell in love with her. She was the Sultan's daughter, the young Princess Yasmin. She was the gentlest, most adorable and the very prettiest girl that he had ever met. Princess Yasmin liked him too, and a few days later Aladdin went to the palace where the Sultan lived. "I want to marry your daughter," Aladdin said to the Sultan, as if he were a sultan too. Instead of getting angry, the Sultan laughed. "You will have to have a palace at least like mine to ask for my daughter's hand," he said. "You will have that palace by tomorrow," Aladdin replied. In the same night, when he was alone, he asked the genie from the lamp to grant him his second wish, to have a palace as big as the Sultan's and right next to it. The palace was there the next morning. The Sultan let his daughter marry Aladdin. After the Sultan's death, Aladdin ruled the country, and everyone lived happily. This news reached Mustafa, who knew how Aladdin had become so rich and powerful. He thought of a plan to get the lamp. He waited for Aladdin to leave the palace and stood under Yasmin's window, shouting as loud as he could, "New lamps for old lamps. Only today in the city. New lamps for old lamps." And people started crowding around him. Soon he noticed the princess among them. She thought she could exchange the old ugly lamp, which Aladdin liked so much and kept in their bedroom. As soon as he got hold of the lamp, Mustafa immediately rubbed it and the genie came out of it, with the same words, "Master, I will grant you 3 wishes. Be careful of your choice." "Stop talking," Mustafa yelled. "I want you to take me, Yasmin, and her palace as far away from here as you can. So far that Aladdin wouldn't find us even if he rode for 3 days and 3 nights. When Aladdin came back in the evening, he found to his surprise that Yasmin and the whole palace were missing. He searched for them for 3 days and 3 nights, and when he couldn't find them on his own, Aladdin rubbed the ring and asked the genie from the ring to grant him his second wish, to get him to Yasmin. As soon as he had wished for it, he found himself in Yasmin's room. "My dearest Aladdin, I knew you would find me." They hugged and thought through how to trick Mustafa, so that he couldn't do any more harm. Aladdin hid in the palace, and Yasmin went to find the vicious man. "I don't think that my husband will ever find me, so I would like to become your wife," she told him. Mustafa believed her. He decided that this was the best day of his life, and he got so drunk that he fell asleep. Yasmin quickly took the lamp and ran to find Aladdin. They rubbed the lamp and asked the genie to take the palace back to its old place. Soon they were in their city, and everything seemed to be back to normal, but with one little exception, Mustafa. Aladdin asked the genie from the lamp to grant his last wish and to turn Mustafa into a frog so that he could never bother them again. When they had no more wishes left, they returned the lamp and the ring to the cave and lived happily ever after. East. Once upon a time there was a rich merchant. He had 3 beautiful daughters, but the youngest was the most beautiful. When she was a child, everyone called her Beauty, and the name stuck with her over the years. Her sisters envied her because she was also the kindest and the smartest of the 3. Their father lost all his money because his ship sank at sea. The family had to move to a small cottage in a small village. The man went to the fields every morning to work, while Beauty did the cleaning and prepared lunch for her family every day. The only thing her sisters did was wake up late, wander around all day, and complain that they had no lovely clothes to wear anymore. A year passed. One day the father received a letter saying that one of the ships he owned had returned undamaged. It meant that the family was rich again. When they heard the news, the older sisters made a list of things they wanted their father to buy for them: dresses, hats, shoes, earrings, bracelets, and lots more. "Would you like me to buy something for you too?" her father asked Beauty. She thought that the money they had wouldn't be enough for her sisters' lists, so she replied kindly, "Since you ask, I would like you to bring me a rose, because they don't flower here." When the man arrived at the ship, it was undamaged, but it was empty, and so the man had to go back home as poor as he was before. There were only 10 miles left to his house when suddenly a blizzard started. The snow was so thick and the wind so strong that the man fell off his horse twice. It was evening, and the man thought that he was going to die from cold and hunger. Just then he spotted a castle not far away. He arrived at the castle and went into a hall. There was a fire where he could dry his clothes and a table set for just one person. The man waited to see if anyone would come, but since no one came, and he couldn't stand the hunger any longer, he ate the meal in front of him. He felt a lot better and started to explore the castle. At last he found a bed, which seemed to have been made up for him. He didn't bother waiting, but got in and fell asleep right away. When he woke up the next day, he was surprised to find some clean clothes left out for him instead of his own dirty clothes. He put them on and went outside to find his horse. On his way out of the castle, he passed under an arch of roses and remembered what his youngest daughter had asked him to bring her. He plucked some roses from the bush. At once, he heard a terrible roar and saw a beast running towards him. "You are so ungrateful. I gave you food, a warm bed, and clothes, and still you pick my roses, the only thing I truly love. Prepare to die." "Please, master, don't kill me," the man answered. I have 3 lovely girls waiting for me to get back home. I'm not your master, I'm a beast, so don't flatter me. But you said you have daughters. You can go, but you must promise that one of your daughters will come on her own and die instead of you. If not, you should come back in 3 months to die. The man had no choice but to agree. The beast had one last thing to say. I don't want you to leave the castle with empty hands. Before you leave, take this bag and fill it with as much gold and precious things as you can find. The man went home. He was very sad. He gave Beauty the roses he had taken from the beast's garden and told everyone what had happened. The older sisters started crying, but Beauty stayed calm. Why aren't you crying? Demanded the sisters. Father is going to die, just because of your silly roses. Father won't die, she replied. The beast told father that he could send one of his daughters, and so I'm going to go. Nothing could make Beauty change her mind. The next day she left with her father to go to the beast's castle. On the way, her father told Beauty about the gold which the beast had made him take. She advised her father to use the money as a dowry for her sisters. When they arrived at the palace, the beast met them. Did you come here of your own will? He asked. Yes, Beauty replied. Your heart is too good. The beast exclaimed and told them to have dinner and sleep well. Tomorrow morning you can leave the palace, the beast told the man. The next morning, after her father left the palace, Beauty started crying. She thought that the beast wanted to kill her. With her head full of these horrible thoughts, the girl started walking around the palace. It was very beautiful. To her surprise, she found a room which had a sign on it saying, Beauty's Chambers. She opened the door and saw a lovely room with piano and library. The beast doesn't want me to get bored, she thought, and regained her courage. If only I could see my family, everything would be perfect, she thought, and at that moment the mirror on the wall showed her home. She saw that one of her sisters was getting married, but then everything disappeared. This probably means he doesn't want to kill me. At dinner time, she went into the dining room and saw that the beast was there. Can I watch you while you eat? He asked. Of course, Beauty replied. You are the master here. No, the beast replied. You are the mistress of this castle. If you want me to leave, I will go right away. Tell me, you find me disgusting, don't you? Beauty couldn't lie, so she answered, Yes, indeed I do, but I believe you have a good heart. You are right. Not only am I disgusting, but I don't have any brains either. I am a beast, he said, and left her to have her dinner alone. The next evening the beast entered the room around dinner time and asked the Beauty a question which shocked her. Will you marry me? He asked. No, beast, she answered. He sighed and left the room again. This is how they lived for 3 months. Beauty's happiness would have been complete if the beast didn't ask her one and the same question every evening. One day Beauty was standing in front of the mirror and saw her family again. She saw that her father was very sick. She ran to the beast and told him what she saw. I promised never to leave you, but if you don't let me go, I will die from sorrow, she said. You can go visit your family, he said, but you must promise that you will be back on the 8th day. When you are ready to come back, you should just put your ring on the table. The next morning she woke up at her father's home. When he saw his youngest daughter at home safe and well, the father got very excited. Her sisters also came to see her. They were both very envious and angry that Beauty was all dressed up in a lovely dress and was looking more beautiful than ever. They came up with a sly plan to make Beauty go back to the castle later. Then she had promised so that the beast would get angry and kill her. When the 8th day came, they started crying and asking their youngest sister to stay with them a little more. Beauty's good heart didn't even think there could be a plan, and she believed they truly missed her. She promised to stay 8 more days. But on the 10th day, Beauty had a dream. In her dream the beast was lying in the garden almost dead. She woke up and put her ring on the table. The next morning she woke up in the castle. She called for the beast, but no one replied. She searched for her beast everywhere, but she couldn't find him. At last she remembered her dream and went in the garden. There she found the beast. He had fainted, but Beauty thought he was dead. He died because of me, she thought, and a teardrop fell on his chest. As soon as Beauty's tears dripped onto his chest, Beast turned into a handsome prince. Beauty was amazed. I was turned into a hideous beast by a fairy long ago, because I didn't let her shelter in the castle when there was a storm, Beast explained. Only finding true love could break the spell. Will you marry me? Beauty agreed happily, and they lived many long years together in the castle. Rapunzel. Once upon a time there lived a man and his wife who were very unhappy because they had no children. These good people had a little window at the back of their house, which looked into the most lovely garden, full of all manner of beautiful flowers and vegetables. But the garden was surrounded by a high wall, and no one dared to enter it, for it belonged to a witch of great power, who was feared by the whole world. One day the woman stood at the window overlooking the garden, and saw there a bed full of the finest rampion. The leaves looked so fresh and green that she longed to eat them. The desire grew day by day, and just because she knew she couldn't possibly get any, she pinned away and became quite pale and wretched. Then her husband grew alarmed and said, "What ails you, dear wife?" "Oh," she answered, "if I don't get some rampion to eat out of the garden behind the house, I know I shall die." So at dusk he climbed over the wall into the witch's garden, and gathered a handful of rampion leaves, but when he reached the other side he drew back in terror, for there, standing before him, was the old witch. "How dare you," she said, with a wrathful glance, "climb into my garden and steal my rampion like a common thief? You shall suffer for your foolhardiness." "Oh," he implored, "forgive me. Necessity alone drove me to the deed. My wife saw your rampion from her window, and conceived such a desire for it that she would certainly have died if her wish had not been gratified." Then the witch's anger was a little appeased, and she said, "If it's as you say, you may take as much rampion away with you as you like, but on one condition only, that you give me the child your wife will shortly bring into the world. All shall go well with it, and I will look after it like a mother." The man in his terror agreed to everything she asked, and as soon as the child was born the witch appeared, and having given it the name of Rapunzel, which is the same as rampion, she carried it off with her, insensitive to the parents' grief. Rapunzel was the most beautiful child under the sun. When she was 12 years old the witch shut her up in a tower, in the middle of a great wood, and the tower had neither stairs nor doors, only high up at the very top a small window. When the old witch wanted to get in she stood underneath and called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair," for Rapunzel had wonderful long hair, and it was as fine as spun gold. Whenever she heard the witch's voice she unloosed her plaits, and let her hair fall down out of the window, and the old witch climbed up by it. After they had lived like this for a few years, it happened one day that a prince was riding through the wood and passed by the tower. As he drew near it he heard someone singing so sweetly that he stood still spellbound, and listened. It was Rapunzel in her loneliness trying to while away the time by letting her sweet voice ring out into the wood. The prince longed to see the owner of the voice, but he sought in vain for a door in the tower. He rode home, but he was so haunted by the song he had heard that he returned every day to the wood and listened. One day, when he was standing thus behind a tree, he saw the old witch approach and heard her call out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair." Then Rapunzel let down her plaits, and the witch climbed up by them. "So that's the staircase, is it?" said the prince. "Then I too will climb it and try my luck." So on the following day, at dusk, he went to the foot of the tower and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair," and as soon as she had let it down the prince climbed up. At first Rapunzel was terribly frightened when a man came in, for she had never seen one before. But the prince spoke to her so kindly, and told her at once that his heart had been so touched by her singing, that he felt he should know no peace of mind till he had seen her. Very soon Rapunzel forgot her fear, and when he asked her to marry him she consented at once. For, she thought, he is young and handsome, and I'll certainly be happier with him than with the old witch. So she put her hand in his and said, "Yes, I will gladly go with you, only how am I to get down out of the tower? Every time you come to see me you must bring a skein of silk with you, and I will make a ladder of them, and when it is finished I will climb down by it, and you will take me away on your horse." They arranged that till the ladder was ready, he was to come to her every evening, because the old woman was with her during the day. The old witch, of course, knew nothing of what was going on, till one day Rapunzel, not thinking of what she was about, turned to the witch and said, "How is it, good mother, that you are so much harder to pull up than the young prince? He is always with me in a moment." "Oh, you wicked child," cried the witch. "What is this I hear? I thought I had hidden you safely from the whole world, and in spite of it you have managed to deceive me." In her wrath she seized Rapunzel's beautiful hair, wound it round and round her left hand, and then grasping a pair of scissors in her right, snip snap, off it came, and the beautiful plaits lay on the ground. And, worse than this, she was so hard-hearted that she took Rapunzel to a lonely desert place, and there left her to live in loneliness and misery. But on the evening of the day in which she had driven poor Rapunzel away, the witch fastened the plates onto a hook in the window, and when the prince came and called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair," she let them down, and the prince climbed up as usual, but instead of his beloved Rapunzel he found the old witch, who fixed her evil, glittering eyes on him, and cried mockingly, "Ah, you thought to find your lady love, but the pretty bird has flown and its song is dumb. The cat caught it, and will scratch out your eyes too. Rapunzel is lost to you forever, you will never see her more." The prince was beside himself with grief, and in his despair he jumped right down from the tower, and, though he escaped with his life, the thorns among which he fell pierced his eyes out. Then he wandered, blind and miserable, through the wood, eating nothing but roots and berries, and weeping and lamenting the loss of his lovely bride. So he wandered about for some years, as wretched and unhappy as he could well be, and at last he came to the desert place where Rapunzel was living. Of a sudden he heard a voice which seemed strangely familiar to him. He walked eagerly in the direction of the sound, and when he was quite close, Rapunzel recognized him and fell on his neck and wept. But two of her tears touched his eyes, and in a moment they became quite clear again, and he saw as well as he had ever done. Then he led her to his kingdom, where they were received and welcomed with great joy, and they lived happily ever after. The Woodpecker, the Turtle, and the Deer. Once upon a time a deer lived in a forest near a lake. Not far from the same lake, a woodpecker had a nest in the top of a tree, and in the lake lived a turtle. The three were friends, and lived together happily. A hunter, wandering about in the wood, saw the footprints of the deer near the edge of the lake. "I must trap the deer, going down into the water," he said, and setting a strong trap of leather, he went his way. Early that night when the deer went down to drink, he was caught in the trap, and he cried the cry of capture. At once the woodpecker flew down from her tree top, and the turtle came out of the water to see what could be done. Said the woodpecker to the turtle, "Friend, you have teeth, you gnaw through the leather trap. I will go and see to it that the hunter keeps away. If we both do our best our friend will not lose his life." So the turtle began to gnaw the leather, and the woodpecker flew to the hunter's house. At dawn the hunter came, knife in hand, to the front door of his house. The woodpecker, flapping her wings, flew at the hunter and struck him in the face. The hunter turned back into the house and lay down for a little while. Then he rose up again, and took his knife. He said to himself, "When I went out by the front door, a bird flew in my face. Now I will go out by the back door." So he did. The woodpecker thought, "The hunter went out by the front door before, so now he will leave by the back door." So the woodpecker sat in a tree near the back door. When the hunter came out the bird flew at him again, flapping her wings in the hunter's face. Then the hunter turned back and lay down again. When the sun arose, he took his knife and started out once more. This time the woodpecker flew back as fast as she could fly to her friends, crying, "Here comes the hunter." By this time the turtle had gnawed through all the pieces of the trap but one. The leather was so hard that it made his teeth feel as if they would fall out. His mouth was all covered with blood. The deer heard the woodpecker and saw the hunter, knife in hand, coming on. With a strong pull, the deer broke this last piece of the trap and ran into the woods. The woodpecker flew up to her nest in the treetop. But the turtle was so weak he could not get away. He lay where he was. The hunter picked him up and threw him into a bag, tying it to a tree. The deer saw that the turtle was taken and made up his mind to save his friend's life. So the deer let the hunter see him. The hunter seized his knife and started after the deer. The deer, keeping just out of his reach, led the hunter into the forest. When the deer saw that they had gone far into the forest, he slipped away from the hunter, and swift as the wind, he went by another way to where he had left the turtle. But the turtle was not there. The deer called, "Turtle, turtle." And the turtle called out, "Here I am in a bag hanging on this tree." Then the deer lifted the bag and throwing it upon the ground, he tore the bag open and let the turtle out. The woodpecker flew down from her nest, and the deer said to them, "You two friends saved my life, but if we stay here talking, the hunter will find us, and we may not get away. So do you, friend woodpecker, fly away. And you, friend turtle, dive into the water. I will hide in the forest." The hunter did come back, but neither the deer, nor the turtle, nor the woodpecker was to be seen. He found his torn bag, and picking that up he went back to his home. The three friends lived together all the rest of their lives,